Thank you for coming. I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel on where the growth is in the next 10 years with two titans of the asset management industry. First, I just want to frame who we have up here. Hendrik runs 91, which is a $150 billion asset manager, and Samir runs MENA and Africa for General Atlantic, which is a $77 billion growth equity firm. So you have two titans of asset management here on the stage. Let's just start with the opening obvious question, which is, where is the growth in the next 10 years? What are you excited about? I'm going to start with you, Samir. You are involved in a firm that's famous for scaling entrepreneurs all over the world, but you're in charge of this region. What excites you about the next 10 years? What can we expect?
Well, if I'm in charge of this region is for a reason, which is General Atlantic believes that the future is bright, and more specifically the GCC countries, and there will be plenty of opportunities. And I think that future is bright in this region, short term and long term. You have in this region the right vision coming from the leadership across the countries. You have in this region the right policies. You have in this region the right demographic, where we know that young people represents more than 50% of the population. You have in this region a real rush on education. And you have in this region a great capital market, which is building up, whether is it here in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai or in Saudi Arabia. So you have all the ingredient in this region, to see a real bright future. You have as well, a lot of investment in non-oil economies. And when you think about the non-oil GDP represents now almost 65 to 70% of the GCC countries. And we have seen it moving really by 50% for the last 10 years and by 20% since starting of COVID. So a lot of investment as well is coming into the non-oil sector. And lastly, there is more and more population coming into this region or living into this region through demography and through people coming. And who says more population says more consumptions. So even the consumption space is very well positioned in this region. Now, I will end up by saying digitalization in this region on its high. And when I look from General Atlantic perspective, I mean, we are a shareholder of ByteDance, and we see that the Middle East is, and more specifically the GCC, of the higher users of digital. So digitalization is at its high, consumption is at its high, and the function of enabling actually consumers to get access to goods and to get access to services are already there. So I put all this wrapped, and I say that however you look at it, put aside the geopolitical events, however you look at it, the future seems bright in this region, hence the attraction of General Atlantic to come and invest in this region.
Great. And you've put about $500 million into this region since 2015, is that correct?
So we have invested in Network International. Everyone knows Network International here. And now we are an investor in Property Finders, where in the UAE, actually, this is the platform to find a place to live or to rent a place. And we are about to do some 3 or 4 more investments currently. What we are doing as well is that we are asking a license to ADGM. Hopefully, we will get it done quickly, and then we will have physical presence in this region. And we are asking a license as well to the CMA in Saudi Arabia, and very interested to as well establish an office in Saudi Arabia.
Great. I'm going to move off to Hendrik. Hendrik, you run a global asset management firm, about $150 billion, so you're all over the world. What excites you? What regions excite you?
I mean, as Samir has just told the story about this region, it's one of the most exciting places in the world right now for the reasons Samir mentioned. But I want to go back to Alan Howard's conversation. We are going into a world next 10 years which is going to be driven by two very big themes. One is sustainability,
Yep.
the change of the way we live, and the other one is the technology, which is not slowing down. It's just going faster, and you'll talk about AI later. If you put those things together, the ability of the emerging world to catch up, to use its consumption muscle, its youth, to be part of that is extremely exciting in spite of the complexities, because we are in a very complex world. And therefore, things won't go in a straight line. Don't be scared of volatility. Go for it, because we have more opportunity now than ever in my career in terms of a rapidly changing world and a rebuild of global infrastructure, which for us is really interesting to invest in.
So we're going to talk about emerging markets as an investment category in a minute, but let me just go back to you, Samir, for a minute. GA really works with entrepreneurs to scale their businesses all over the world, wherever they are. What does entrepreneurship look like in this region? I mean, you know, sort of entrepreneurship is more associated with places like Silicon Valley. How is entrepreneurship doing here in this region?
First of all, entrepreneurship is not anymore a local concept.
Great.
And it's not anymore Silicon Valley or New York. It's a global concept. And you have it in Manila, you have it in Jakarta, you have it in Abu Dhabi, you have it in Riyadh, you have it in Cairo. So the concept is becoming really a global concept with a local footprint. Now, in this region, what is amazing is that we have seen an acceleration throughout COVID with all the digitalization that has been needed. And the entrepreneurship in this region is more at the startup and venture level.
Okay.
And we have seen so many of them and so successful ones. But I would say that, and this is where the GA is coming and being interested, as we have done in the past in other places in the world, in China, as we've done it in India, etc. Here we feel that some of these companies can become seriously regional or even global. What they need is to be scaled up. And to scale up, they would not be able to do it by their own, and they will not be able to do it without really a know-how and support. And this is where, you know, we have spotted in sectors like in consumers, like in fintech, now in health tech, some companies that can really scale up and become regional or global. And I want to add that our approach, General Atlantic, has never been to come and buy a company.
Yes.
We always come and support the founders or the entrepreneurs of this company. We take a minority stake, we sit with them at the board, and we help them scaling up. And if you look at the example of Property Finder, it's exactly what we did. We came 2018, took 40% of the company, worked with the founder, and made this company a great company today.
And Hendrik, you know a little bit about scaling up a firm in an emerging market. Hendrik started 91 in South Africa and has grown it into a mega global powerhouse. So this must be an exciting conversation for you. So riff on that, and then I'll ask you about emerging markets.
Yeah, I just think we're going into a slightly different stage of entrepreneurship. When I started, I was probably not smart enough to realize what was happening in the internet, so I just went into investment management. But we are going to that same kind of phase where you have to build real businesses, because with the developments in tech, and with interest rates where they are, it's not going to be a world where I can quickly build a concept and sell it.
Yes.
And you would have seen the returns in markets now. If you don't produce cash, you don't produce profits in a real interest rate world, you don't get valued. So this is the time where the real world entrepreneurs, many of whom live in emerging markets, can get access to capital through places like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, etc., New York, London, wherever, but here, and build those businesses which use technology, but actually operate in a cash positive way, the kind of business you've built, Jen. So they are back in fashion.
Thank you for that. So emerging markets, I think the IMF said we can expect emerging markets to grow by 4% and mature markets to grow by about 1.4%. So emerging markets seems to be an exciting place to put your money, but obviously with some risk appetite. Hendrik, tell us about that. You're an emerging market specialist, among other things. What would you say to an audience of investors?
I think the concept of emerging market is almost outdated. We live in a multipolar world now,
That's a great point.
which is much more nuanced. But just look at the size. That is the part of the world, as the economic center of gravity shifts to east from here, that's where the vast majority of people in the world live. It's already half the GDP of the world. And if you look at market capitalization and growth in that, you talk about 20 trillion of financial assets, equity assets. You talk about 30 trillion of fixed income assets in that world, out of a total universe of probably 170 or 120 trillion. Maybe a bit more, 150 trillion. So this is big. It's too big to ignore, and it happens to be demographically the future. So why not look for the diamonds in the rough?
That sounds good. Again, we can't talk about the next 10 years without talking about energy transition. COP is next week. You're both thought leaders in this space. Samir, give us some of your thoughts on investing in the energy transition, or maybe you want to go back to...
If I may, one second
please,
on emerging market, which for me, the future is bright for emerging markets, and there is no doubt that we are migrating, and all the elements, ingredients are there for the whole asset managers and the whole wealth of the world cannot ignore it. But short term, there is some constraints on emerging market, and we have to be very careful. First of all, the combination growth, inflation is in a difficult spot. Secondly, the high interest rates, represent a real issue for emerging markets more than for the developed markets. Thirdly, the high FX rate, and there is many countries connected to the dollar. They have some difficulties swallowing it, and the fact that liquidity is retracting across the globe. So all these factors would make me feel that we'll have to be careful, and emerging market short term is not anymore the beta play where we say we go emerging market and we will make money. But actually, emerging market is back to fundamentals now, and back to basics. And we will have to, as Hendrik said, focus on the countries that they can make it short term. And more importantly, it's back to be a bottom-up play.
Yes.
So it's really back to be an alpha play where you'll need professional to go and pick up the right opportunities. Is it in public markets or in private markets to take advantage of it? There will be plenty of entrepreneurs. Continue to flourish in emerging markets. It will not stop. It's, as I said, this is the future, actually, and they will not be discouraged by the challenges of the day. But what is important is that how do we pick them up? How do we find them? And how we will make sure that we're not going randomly and distributing capital with no real selection process. Hence, the need actually now more than ever to count on professionals like all of us, like you, like me, like General Atlantic, like 92, to go and find the right opportunities.
So we're going to run out of time so quickly. I want you to be able to tell the audience in the next 10 years, what do you think is the most important thing to be paying attention to? Because we've got about 47 seconds, believe it or not. Hendrik, unfair question.
No, I think it's the existential challenge which binds us all together as humanity. If we don't arrest the climate disaster awaiting us, life will be very unpleasant on this earth. And I find it incredibly frustrating that we are talking about things like green washing and green hushing. We should be doing what actually Dr. Sultan is encouraging us to do, is mobilize money to finance the biggest single transition the world has ever seen, and do it much faster than the Industrial Revolution or any other revolution before us. And if we don't do that, we've got a problem. So I think that's what we should be focusing on.
Samir.
I will continue by saying, the poor conversation in whole energy transition and climate is adaptation and resiliation. We keep thinking that, we need to decarbonize and we need to do many, many, many things, which is right, but people are dying now. And that makes me extremely sensitive to the idea that we're not paying enough attention and we're not investing enough money now in our infrastructures, specifically in emerging markets, to protect populations and to avoid deaths of people now.
Great. I had about 100 more questions, but we've run out of time. So thank you both for your thoughts, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.